cosplay here. The COVID pandemic was definitely not the most fun kind of time, but because of it I did learn a lot of things about making cosplay pictures from home because, well, we couldn't leave our house, so I kinda had to. Making cosplay pictures from home has been proven to be very useful for a lot of reasons, like certain projects or cost tests or reveals or just because it's easier. But to get to the point, I thought it would be a fun idea to make a video about everything that I learned and give you some tips and tricks for making your own cosplay pictures at home. First things first, when you're going to make pictures, you of course need a camera, and I used to make all my pictures with my DSLR, which is a Canon EOS, looking at my camera now, 250D. After a while I switched to my phone because it was a lot easier to set up, and it was also easier to make the pictures because it has a self-timer. It works when I just put like my hand up and then the timer starts. And I also have this button thingy that only works with my phone and not with my camera, so overall it's just a lot easier to make pictures on my phone, and the quality of phone cameras these days is pretty decent. A camera on a phone will go a long way. Light is of course a very important thing you will need when you're making pictures. Even when you make pictures at conventions or photo shoots, you need light. And the cheapest way to get light is by using, well, basically the sun and using actual daylight. And the difference definitely shows when you're standing in a corner with just some artificial lighting or you're standing in front of a window. One of the first things I bought during this pandemic was a ring light, and again it makes a huge difference when taking photos. You can go as expensive or cheap with these as you want, and if you're creative you can even make your own one. My friend Goldilocks Cosplay did that once for a school project and it worked pretty great. And on top of that, having multiple lights is also very fun to experiment with and can lead to very fun results. Something else that I personally find very important when making my pictures at home is a good or neutral background. Having a neutral background can help put the focus on the costume without any distractions, and I think it just makes for a cleaner shot. It's also why I deliberately left a blank space in my craft room specifically to make photos. Having a neutral background also can help in the editing process. I think it's easier to remove if you want to, or to change it up a bit with some color. It gives you a lot of options. Now, neutral can be a lot of colors. It can be light, it can be dark. I have even used my cosplay closet as a background for some pictures, and I think it worked good. Something you could also do if you want to go crazy is create your own background, like create a little scene, or maybe you have a place in your environment that just fits the aesthetic of your cosplay great, and then of course you can just use that. I have also used my garden sometimes as a background. We don't have the most fancy garden, but we do have this one pretty bush, and sometimes that is all you need. Having a stand for your camera can also really help you to make pictures. Having both hands free makes it easier to pose and interact with your props and can give you more interesting results. For my camera, I usually use an old stand that my dad got me from a second-hand shop when I was still studying. So it's very old, but it still works fine. So I definitely recommend checking out second-hand stores because these stands can get pretty expensive. With my ring light, I ordered a stand and I mainly use that for my phone. And to get my phone on there, my husband made this Warbler kind of thing. It's not perfect, but it works. And most importantly, it was very cheap. So again, it doesn't need to be fancy, just having something to put your camera on can be a huge help. Props can be very useful for cosplay photos, whether you're taking them at home or a con or a photo shoot location. I love using props because they give you more posing options, and I also think they make posing easier because you have something to interact with. I find posing still very difficult, and props definitely have been a lifesaver for me. Props can also help you tell a little story or put a little scene together in your photo, which can be very fun. And your prop doesn't need to be something very fancy. Just a flower or a book or the guitar of your husband will do. And my last tip will be, don't be afraid to experiment. Some things will work and some things don't, but if you never try, you never discover new things. One of the things that I discovered was that just putting some leaves in front of my camera made for very fun pictures, and I've done it multiple times now. It's also by experimenting that my husband and I created these really cool pike pictures in front of my green screen, experimenting with the colored lights that my husband had, and I'm just very pleased with how these turned out. I also love to experiment with editing software. I mainly use Photoshop, which is quite expensive, but there are some alternatives out there. For example, you have GIMP, which is an open source photo editing software, and it works pretty well. I've also used that one a couple of times, and it gives you a lot of options. And yes, some experiments will make you cringe and want to put that result somewhere far away, but that is how we learn. And that is sort of everything that I've learned for now about making pictures from home. Again, it can be very useful to do so, and it sometimes can even give you options you wouldn't normally otherwise have. But that will be it for this video. Thank you for watching, and bye!